Um, Mr. Freeman may chime in. It may be on Zoom. He can't make it, so you're kind of stuck with me here today as the vice chairman. My name's Jeff Fusco, and I'd like to, at this point, enter a motion that we approve the minutes of the previously held meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. So we have a couple items that are new, and we have one that's currently on the agenda. At this time, the one that's on the agenda is amending and or supplementing Administration Chapter 30, Mayor and Council, Section 30.11, limits on non-cash monetary and in-kind contributions and loans, and Section 30.12, limits on cash contributions to increase the contribution limits for mayoral and council candidates and declaring an emergency. We did, in fact, amend this and included language in that was requested to lower the amounts that are permitted from PACs as well as from the PACs and parties. So that has been adjusted, and I do know that there's some concern around this and there's some support around this. So I'll open it up for questions and comments at this time if anyone has any. I'd like to see a vote today on this particular item. May not have the votes in committee. I could ask this evening for a, to ask the chair to pull the committee this evening, if so, but I don't know where it's going to be. So is there any questions or comments in reference to this particular item, item number one? I'm not hearing or seeing any questions or comments whatsoever from anyone. Oh, yes. Ms. Mosley?
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. Turned it off. Although I do appreciate the amendment that has come forth, I just wish we would move it out to 2024. I just think it's problematic for us to bring in legislation to move the amounts up in the midst of each and every one of us going into an election cycle. So again, I can't support it because of that reason. I understand that there needs to probably be an increase, but not when we're all getting ready to go into an election cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you entertain approving it at least in committee so we can report out tonight? We can vote it up either way. Up or down? Oh, you're not. That's right. You're not. You're not. Who else do we have here? Yeah. Anyone? Any other questions or comments? I see Mr. And who is on the committee?
Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I keep going in and out. This has to do with the increase in the campaign finance.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. And you plan to bring this to the body tonight for a vote?
Yes, I'd like to. Yes.
Is that your plan?
Yes.
I see. And I think I've stated my position already and stated it clearly. I hope that I cannot support this in light of the citizens continually asking us to hold campaign financing to a level that's reasonable, and so that other people who are not currently in these chairs can afford to campaign for one of these offices. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So with that, I'm just going to ask for an item to refer, a motion to refer this item, and I will ask this evening if I can pull the committee and or we could just wait a week. So with that, is there a motion to refer? Is there a second? I'll second it. All those in favor of referring signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. The next item that's up for a public hearing, or I'm sorry, I'm so used to planning. We have a lot of public hearings on planning. The first item that we have here, under rules, under new legislation, is an ordinance amending and or supplementing Title IX General Provisions to enact Chapter 106 Prohibition of Conversion Therapy on Minors of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Akron to prohibit the practice of conversion therapy on minors. Last week, the committee was informed that the administration had some folks that they would like to introduce this afternoon to discuss this item.
Thank you.
Ms. Williams?
Gert Williams on behalf of the City of Akron, Chief of Staff to Mayor Horgan. I did have a conversation with Chair Freeman last week. I did make the chair aware and got permission for sitting on my right, Casey Pick, Senior Fellow for Advocacy and Government Affairs from the Trevor Project, to speak. On Zoom, State of Ohio Rep. Elena Jokum, Executive Director of Equality Ohio, and to my left, Rebecca Callahan, Executive Director from Canopy. Because these are advocates on this topic and are in the best position to educate and let this group body know what we're here for today, I will definitely turn this over immediately to Casey Pick, again, Senior Fellow from the Trevor Project.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome to Akron City Council's Rules Committee.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon. My name is Casey Pick, she and her, and I'm the Senior Fellow for Advocacy and Government Affairs for the Trevor Project. I am also an attorney with over a decade's experience with LGBTQ legislation, in particular laws like this one. So I would like to thank you for the opportunity to express the Trevor Project's strong support of the proposed ordinance to protect youth under the age of 18 from sexual orientation and gender identity change efforts, sometimes known as conversion therapy, at the hands of licensed professionals in Akron. These practices take many forms, from so-called talk therapy that can look a lot like the kind of therapy that folks like you and I might get, to retreat centers and camps where professional staff are there to run things, to twists on 12-step addiction practices and support groups, or even physical intervention or shame-based therapies. What is important to know is that whatever form it takes, all conversion therapy is premised on the idea that sexual orientation or gender identity is something that can or should change, and all of it is harmful. 20 states, nearly 100 municipalities around the country have passed similar legislation, which has been consistently upheld as carefully crafted and narrowly tailored to protect the mental health and well-being of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning young people. Akron should be proud to join their ranks. The Trevor Project is the world's largest suicide prevention and mental health organization dedicated to serving LGBTQ young people. We work every day to save young lives by providing support through free and confidential 24/7 telephone, lifeline, chat, and text platforms. We reach the youth wherever they want to be reached. To further our mission of ending LGBTQ youth suicide, Trevor is dedicated to seeing the end of conversion therapy. In doing so, we are aligned with every major medical and mental health organization in condemning these practices as harmful, ineffective, unethical, and founded on unscientific theories that have been debunked for decades. Trevor also conducts in-depth research into the issues affecting the mental health of the youth we serve. Our 2022 national survey on LGBTQ youth mental health surveyed nearly 34,000 respondents between the ages of 13 and 24 and found that 17% of these youth reported being either threatened with or subjected to conversion therapy. Of note, our research shows that contrary to the common perception of conversion therapy as something that solely affects white gay boys, these practices actually wind up affecting youth of all races and disproportionately affecting youth who are Latinx, mixed race, and especially Native and Indigenous. So tragically, the LGBTQ youth who reported being subjected to or threatened with conversion therapy also reported attempting suicide at more than twice the peers who did not, at rates of about 28% versus 11%. Our research also says that these youth are more than 2.5 times as likely to report multiple suicide attempts in the previous 12 months. You can read more about this in a peer-reviewed article in the American Journal of Public Health that I'd be happy to share with you. In the past year alone, our crisis services have responded to over 7,600 contacts from the state of Ohio, which we estimate to be about 12% of the 67,000 LGBTQ youth in Ohio who seriously considered suicide in the last year. Nationally, many of the young people that we serve are conversion therapy survivors or are afraid that their family members will put them through this. Our counselors don't ask about conversion therapy directly when a youth calls us in crisis, but in the last year, 1,300 contacts from across the U.S. explicitly raised the topic themselves. These contacts come from almost every state and from more than 600 different cities and towns across the country. Some of these youth contact us because their parents are threatening to send them to conversion therapy. Others call us because they are actually undergoing such treatments. It is not working, and their feelings of isolation and failure contribute to suicidal thoughts and behaviors. Many are afraid to come out because they fear it will result in somebody trying to change them. Some are looking for support to get out of conversion therapy. And especially relevant to our conversation today, it is not uncommon for young people to call us and express relief that conversion therapy is illegal where they live. There's one more piece of research I'd like to share with you today. Medical experts have known for decades that conversion therapy contributes to elevated rates of mental health struggles, including depression, anxiety, substance use, and suicide attempts. Earlier this year, JAMA Pediatrics, a peer-reviewed journal of the American Medical Association, published an article in which used health economics to find the annual direct cost of conversion therapy in the United States as $650 million. Worse, the indirect costs associated with the depression, suicide attempts, etc., totals more than $8 billion. To hear these harms put in terms of dollars and cents, I am here to remind you that these astronomical figures represent the suffering of individuals, our friends. As to the concern that is sometimes raised, that protections like this interfere with the ability of parents to care for their children, that is simply not the case. It is long established that the fundamental rights of parents do not include endangering their children by forcing them to undergo medical practices that have been rejected by the scientific community as discredited and harmful, as conversion therapy has. The law already protects against other forms of child endangerment. In fact, this ordinance will protect parents from being taken advantage of, from the heartbreaking ways that these practices tear families apart. We want youth in Akron to grow up knowing that they are loved, supported, and can thrive as their authentic selves. This ordinance will not only provide a real remedy for survivors of conversion therapy, but also serve to educate the families of these youth who come out that this practice is discredited and dangerous. For these reasons, and on behalf of the youth who depend upon our services, the Trevor Project strongly supports the proposed ordinance. Thank you for your consideration, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your comments. Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair. If next on Zoom, if we could have Elena Jochum. Again, Elena serves as the Executive Director for Equality Ohio.
Good afternoon, Council. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm truly grateful. I wish I could be there in person. I am actually based in Northeast Ohio, but have a child care issue this morning. My name is Elena Jochum, she, her pronouns. I'm Executive Director of Equality Ohio, and I'm also an attorney by practice. Thank you so much for considering protecting our youth against the dangerous practice of so-called conversion therapy in Akron. Your proud city stands ready to join Cincinnati, Toledo, Columbus, Dayton, Athens, Lakewood, Kent, Reynoldsburg, Cleveland Heights, and Cleveland having just passed a measure similar to this only 2 weeks ago. This is a critical step to protect children from malfeasance disguised as care. And it's important that this body take this action because the state legislature has not yet banned the practice throughout the state, even though legislation has been pending to protect our youth against this harmful practice for several years now. We rely on local bodies like yours, like Akron City Council, to take action to protect our youth. In order to not repeat the wonderful testimony that Casey from the Trevor Project has provided, I'm going to summarize from the statement that I provided you earlier. But I want to highlight some key additions to supplement her testimony. Critically, the victims of this practice, which has been disproven and disassociated by all major medical associations, critically, the victims of this practice are not limited to the youth who endure it and must survive it. It's important to acknowledge that many parents who send their children to conversion therapy are trying to do the best thing they are aware of for their child. They too become victims to the fraudulent of support by practitioners of conversion therapy. And I'm putting that in air quotes because we know it is not really therapy. Having a public conversation like this is an invaluable educational event to bring awareness that the assurances that practitioners of conversion therapy offer, that it is somehow possible to change a young person's gender identity or sexual orientation, are simply lies, and that those lies have negative consequences for our young people. Excuse me. This measure is prudent, and in this political climate, it is also timely. I want to thank the council members for their thoughtful consideration of this legislation, and I will leave the final words of my testimony to Leela Alcorn. Leela was a transgender child in Kings Mills, Ohio, who completed suicide in December of 2014. She scheduled a blog post, her last, to upload automatically after the fact. In it, she expressed that her parents didn't approve of her and employed some of the techniques we're talking about tonight to try to change Leela's gender. Her words follow, quote, "My death needs to mean something. My death needs to be counted in the number of transgender people who commit suicide this year. I want someone to look at that number and say, that's messed up, and fix it. Fix society, please," end quote. Thank you, Akron City Council, for taking an important step to help fix society here in Akron today. I'm happy to take any questions the council members may have.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for testifying before the committee. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you. Ms. Wells?
Elena, thank you for your powerful words. Next, to my left, Rebecca Callahan. Rebecca's a local gem, the executive director of the Community AIDS Network, the Akron Pride Initiative.
Thank you. Make sure you can hear me. Thank you for providing this opportunity. I think that it is due that we address this issue and this concern locally, as Elena had stated, our state is not providing these protections for us, and as Casey indicated, there are still many places in the nation that are not providing these protections for our youth and members of our community. I'll try not to repeat too much, but I can't say enough how conversion therapy is dangerous, and it's been rejected. It is not based on medical or mental health organization practices, scientific data for decades. And it's due to continuing discrimination and societal bias against LGBTQ people that these practices are still around today. Minors, as we noted, are especially vulnerable, and as both of my colleagues had mentioned, can lead to depression, anxiety, drug use, homelessness, and suicide. I want to just provide a couple local stats from the Greater Akron LGBTQ Community Needs Assessment that was conducted in 2020. The full document can be found at lgbtqohio.org. In summary of the respondents to questions respondents for the questions regarding conversion therapy, 50% of those respondents reported feelings of forced or coerced to participate in conversion therapy. 50% said their experience have two different comments that two different respondents were able to provide for us, and I would like to read them to you. Forced conversion therapy was one of my biggest concerns for my LGBTQ plus friends and family. I feel that it is extremely damaging, and it hurts to know that some people are made to go through it. I feel as though these therapies should not be allowed. I feel that those who identify with religions that may oppose the LGBTQ plus community should have some sort of seminar or maybe learn about the dangers of conversion if they are not it. I also feel that there could be a program to make LGBTQ members in the religious community. Another respondent to these questions in a comment said, living in a conservative religious part of the country makes me feel unsafe to be openly bisexual. I feel shame from and internalized homophobia from being raised in an ultra-religious setting. I battle with anger over their social rejection of my most personal business, and in turn suppress my involvement in the LGBTQ community because of fear of social rejection. I worry constantly that other LGBTQ kids are being raised in the same darkness I was. Private religious schools in the area often quietly recommend conversion therapy to parents, and the adults emotionally bully LGBTQ kids. Exposing what they're doing and educating the parents that might listen to the school could help other kids. These are members of our community sharing this in a survey, and it's just a small portion of our population, but I think it's important to note. We must condemn in the loudest possible voice that which would harm some of our most vulnerable, our LGBTQ youth. According to Summit County Youth Risk Behavioral Survey, 45.3% of LGBTQ plus youth in Summit County had given serious consideration to attempting suicide, compared to 13.2% of their non-LGBTQ counterparts. Akron should join the other municipalities across Ohio who have passed similar bans on conversion therapy, and Canopy applauds all those elected officials who would support these measures. Thank you.
Thank you again for your time, for your input, for educating us in terms of this particular. I want to thank all of you for coming and coming forward and educating on this. Dirk, there's one piece, the enforcement piece. Could you explain briefly like how that would work, how we're...
I am going to punt to Emily because I don't want to get it incorrect. Or
Okay.
if Brian Angeloni, I know you were going to join in via Zoom, Brian. So if there's somebody from law, if Emily wants to chime in on the enforcement aspect of this one.
I know the Civil Rights Commission will be, well, we'll hand it off to them to a certain extent, so just want to make sure everyone's
And
clear.
we have shared this with the Civil Rights Commission and have received feedback on their thoughts as well.
Good.
Yes, so that's exactly right, that this is enforceable by the Civil Rights Commission. So are you asking about how we would handle internally? So I think any complaints, Gert, please correct me if I'm wrong, any complaints that we receive would be handled in the same way that we're handling any other complaints that go to the Human Rights Commission. So no difference. This is just a new law that's allowing us the ability to handle those complaints and dispose of them in the same way that you would expect an anti-discrimination complaint to be handled. Is that correct?
Back to the non-discrimination ordinance, this body had to put that into effect. These state LGBTQ rights do not exist. Nationally, they do not exist. These are local problems, and we're asking again for a local solution. So we will ask our Civil Rights Commission to take a look at this. If there is a complaint, I know there's always an option to report out. You know, I have a professional body that oversees my law license. There's other professional bodies that we could report out to as well if there is a violation. So again, the culture wars locally, nationally, statewide, even the State Board of Education where these issues are just being hashed out, and leaving LGBTQ youth just absolutely in harm's way is appalling and dangerous. So we are again asking for a solution here to a local problem.
This is, and again, thank you all for bringing this forward. One's heart goes out to these children, really, teenagers, who would be subjected to something like this. It's appalling to hear that this goes on in this day and age. And I sense your frustration in terms of what's happening out there to our young ones. And so I'm going to open it up to questions. So anyone on the committee have a question or comment? Anyone on the committee? Sharon Connor?
Thank you all for coming. We all have an obligation to protect our children, and I see this as a continuation of the many things we do to keep them safe, no matter how they identify. So I would ask please to have my name added to this.
Thank you, Sharon Connor. Linda Mobian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Good, thank you. Thank you to the experts who said more than I could ever say. As a practitioner myself in mental health, I did some research and I could find absolutely nothing to say that this is a good thing for children or anyone else, practically. So I'm certainly in agreement with this being banned and certainly without opposing it because it's extremely, extremely harmful. Everything that I've read about it indicates that it does more harm to children psychiatrically, physically, in any way you can think of. And all of the things that were listed, from depression to suicide, are the general outcome of these dangerous practices. So I certainly thank the individuals who came and appreciate their wise counsel in terms of us voting to oppose this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Shamus Malik, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank our guests for coming and speaking today and for their leadership on these issues locally and across, our state. I think Councilman Connor said it very powerfully. We all have a responsibility to protect our youth and to make sure that everyone feels valued for who they are. And I think this is one step to doing so, and I'm glad that we're pursuing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Holland?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much to our guests today. One of the things that stands out about being a modern city, a modern community, and being a modern parent is that when we know better, we do better. And the jury has been in for quite some time on the issue of conversion therapy. No less than the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, and even the United Nations, in consultation with experts, have determined that not only is this conversion therapy not useful, it is deeply damaging. The United Nations having taken testimony that it is tantamount to torture. This was very moving information today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of this legislation and to be part of the continued modernization of our city.
Thank you, Nancy Holland, for your comments. Tara Mosley?
Thank you to the speakers and to the administration for allowing us to add our names to this piece of legislation, which is very important. There are so many Leela Alcorns out there, and I appreciate the work that you all are doing in this space. Just to have teenagers not having a safe place to go and they can't even talk to their own parents is troubling in itself. And Leela was parents when she was 14, and by the time she was 17, she felt like no matter what she did was never going to be good enough. And all she wanted to do was be herself. And I appreciate you all for the work you're doing. This is good work, and thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, very good. I think we have, based on comments and such, I'm going to ask at this time, although I'd like to talk to you, if I can get some of that data that you were reciting, appreciate that. But I'm going to ask for a favorable report with suspension of the rules. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those that are against? Good, the ayes have it. We will recommend favorable this evening. Thank you again for coming down. Thank you for all the work, and appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we have one more item that's on the new list of legislation. Sarah, would you like to read this in, please? Ms. Biviano?
Item number 1A is a resolution expressing opposition to Issue 10, a proposed charter amendment that is flawed and will lead to litigation and a waste of taxpayer dollars, reaffirming the City of Akron's support for a future amendment to Akron's charter to include an independent citizen oversight board and a related administrative office related to the Akron Police Department, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Recognizing I'm the primary sponsor here, what I'll do is kind of open it up and present before the committee. Issue 10, and this is asking and opposing Issue 10 officially, that's going to be on the November ballot, November 8th. I believe what this is Issue 10 itself that's on the ballot. I think it's, the biggest piece for me is that I think it's going to go to court. I think it's not a question of will it go to court. I think it's a question of when and how quickly that challenge will come forward. And then how much money, conceivably hundreds of thousands of dollars, and time, which is, you can almost value the time more so than the cost. But the time that's going to take to wait until a decision is made, which it seems as though, from what we've learned and from what we've heard, is that our legal ground is very, very shaky. And so therefore, it's going to be tough to defend in a court situation. I believe we all of us, support an independent citizen oversight board. I'm not going to necessarily go over the history. Everyone knows the history. It's all within the whereas clauses here. You know how an oversight board has been developed over time. I do believe, though, that Akron needs to know where Akron City Council stands on this particular item. The work that has been done by the administration in terms of the oversight board that this council overwhelmingly passed a few weeks ago it's the right first step. It's the right first step. And this whole process began in May. Well, actually, I should say in November of 2020, whenever we received the Social Justice, Racial Equity and Social Justice Task Force. They began their work in 2020, and we received the final report in January of 2022. And the recommendation was for this to take time and for us to go slowly and methodically in terms of moving forward on this, and to make sure that we do this with the best of intentions. And I believe everyone, like I said, we're all in favor, I believe, of the Citizen Oversight Board. But it's a matter of how do we get there, and what's the best possible way to go forward. And I believe, again, it's our task here to make sure that we protect the city's finances and its citizens. And again, my concern is in reference to time too. And this very well, when it goes to court, it will be in court for probably at minimum a year and a half, a year, 2, 3 years. And I don't believe that we have the luxury of time. So with that, I'm not going to ask for passage this evening. This came in late today. I want to make that very clear. I'm not going to ask for passage. So, and I know this is going to be a cause for a lot of concern, and as it should be. We should talk it out. But with this, I'm recommending that we take time, and I'm going to open it up for questions or comments, if there is any, from any committee members. I see Linda Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me. I feel I have so many mixed emotions, and I'm going to try to contain myself. That this is so disingenuous to the 7,000 plus citizens of Akron who took the time to circulate petitions to get this on the ballot. And what we're saying by doing this, you're saying that the citizens of Akron are not aware of what they're doing. So why should we be putting something on the ballot for them to vote on? And what I'm saying to you is that the people who signed those petitions are the same folks that elect us to these offices. And they are saying to us, enough is enough, and we have not done our due diligence as elected officials in taking care of this earlier. We've had ample opportunity to do something like this for years, even before the Social Justice Committee. We hired an auditor. Supposedly he was an independent auditor, but we have watched over the years, I know since I've been on council, we watched his role be diminished and diminished and diminished. The little staff he had removed, not even being able to go to a conference when I first came on council that the city would pay for because they said they didn't have the money in the budget. We were talking about $2,000 at that time. So we had to fight for him to go to a conference, a national conference. But not only that, I feel so ashamed that we're bringing something like this to city council when the citizens of Akron that we represent have spoken clearly that they want this on the ballot. And then we bring in a piece by the mayor before the election to confuse the voters when we had ample time that we could have put something before council many, many years ago, many, many months ago, and we didn't do it. So the citizens were frustrated enough to say, let's do this. They go ahead and do the hard work of getting the signatures, getting it on the ballot, and we don't have decency to allow that process to finalize, because all we have to do is wait another 16 or 15 days for the citizens to vote on this. They don't need to know how we feel about it because they know how we feel. And they know that council is split over this. But at the end of the day, we need to have an independent oversight board to hire an independent auditor with staff to look at these situations that we find troubling, very troubling in Akron. And again, we've had ample time to do something. And now to say to the citizens of Akron, we don't care about your petitions, we don't care about the issue that you worked so hard to put on the ballot, and we're gonna send a message out that council is in such an expert position to say that this is gonna be in court. You don't know that it's gonna be in court, you anticipate that. You know, we keep talking about what FOP thinks, when in fact, when you read the amendment, it talks specifically about the fact that we want good training, a good working relationship with FOP and all the officers and our communities across the city. We have said that very clearly in this amendment that this is what the people are asking for. And for the body, if you want to just hang on that investigative piece, we're talking about the internal investigation they would do, the BCI investigation that would be done at the state level. We're talking about all of those things, and then the oversight committee can review those. You know, we're not saying that this is a panacea or a fix forever. We're saying this is a very good first step to getting something done that's independent of the administration and independent of the politicians downtown. So I am really troubled and very disturbed by this legislation coming in 15 days before the election, or 16, whatever the number is, and then coming in at the last minute today. You know, this is absolutely unacceptable and wrong. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to note that as far as emotions, my emotions largely reflect those of my colleague who just spoke. But I do want to just specifically address a concern that has been discussed a number of times here about the idea that this proposal, that this issue 10 cannot be implemented, that it would be caught up in litigation, and that it would be caught up in court. Now, to be very clear, right, this proposal was specifically drafted to be as careful as possible not to contradict the FOP contract. And to that end, there's language here in the proposal, the second to last section, that says, this section shall be interpreted and applied in a manner that is consistent with the terms of any relevant collective bargaining agreement. But we should go right above, to item H, council shall enact any necessary additional legislation implementing this section no later than June 30th, 2023. So if this passes, council will have to pass, will be advised to pass implementing legislation, fleshing out the details of how this will work. Similar to what happened with the body cam charter amendment. Now, again, people can say that this will be subject to litigation, but what does that specifically mean? So there are a couple things that are mentioned in this resolution. So one is about the term investigation, right? That the term investigation will result in this being challenged. Well, again, council is going to have to pass legislation defining how this board will operate. And all of the proposals of how this, all the interpretations, all the intentions of how this board will operate is not to undermine the existing disciplinary system. And so no one is contemplating having alternative disciplinary investigations, which I think we all think likely would violate the agreement. But no one is saying that's what should happen. And again, the specific language of the charter amendment says that the word investigation and every other word in the whole document has to be interpreted in a way that's consistent with the collective bargaining agreement. So could investigation mean looking at the general policies of the police department in regards to traffic stops? Yeah, I think it could. And I think that wouldn't violate the collective bargaining agreement, right? Could it mean that we have a whole alternate disciplinary investigation system? No, and no one's saying that it would, right? So that's one issue. Let's go to the second one, right? This issue of subpoena power. Now again, this word has to be defined and interpreted in a way that's consistent with the collective bargaining agreement. So yeah, there is probably an argument that subpoena powers probably could not be used, and I'll get back to that in a second, probably could not be used to subpoena an officer with regard to a specific disciplinary case, right? But that's not all that subpoenas and compelling records is valuable for. It can be valuable for compelling records, again, about things as broad as police traffic stops and other broad information that is sometimes needed, right? And so saying that there is subpoena power doesn't mean that it can be used in every possible situation. And again, no one is saying that it can be. It has to be interpreted in a way that is consistent with the collective bargaining agreement. Now, again, finally, just to wrap up, because I don't want to be long-winded, right? Let's go back to how you're talking about this. We're talking about this because earlier this year, a new extension to the collective bargaining agreement was brought to council, and nothing in that contract addresses civilian oversight. And so it is ambiguous as to what's permitted. And so anyone can make an argument that this function is prohibited, honestly, that the mayor's proposal is prohibited, and even it hasn't argued to me before that the current status quo with the existing police auditor is prohibited by the contract, right? And those arguments can be made because nothing in the agreement addresses what is permitted and what is not permitted. And I said at the time, and I stand by, that it should have been clarified in that collective bargaining process what is permitted and what's not, right? But again, we are in a situation in which this will be interpreted in a way that's consistent with the collective bargaining agreement. And so, to say that litigation will stop it, I think is inaccurate. I also just want to finally make the point that this auditor's role has been in place since 2007. And people who have been involved in these discussions can agree on very little, but they can agree that this role has largely not functioned in a way that has been productive for the citizens of Akron. And those discussions have happened for many, many, many years. I remember being in a meeting at the Akron Urban League in 2015 in which there was discussions about the lack of access, independence, and staffing, right? We had discussions in council as part of reimagining public safety in the fall of 2020. We released a report in January 2021. And in that report, it specifically says to ensure that oversight is seen as fair by all members of the community and law enforcement.
Mr. Malik.
Best practice would be for the auditor to report to a board made up of members of the public. That's in January 2021. Throughout all of 2021.
If you could wrap up, Mr. Malik, over 5 minutes.
Okay.
Just wrap up.
Well, what I was going to say is that these discussions did not begin this past May, and this amendment is a result of the city government as a whole moving too slowly to address what has been an issue for over a decade.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Mosley?
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. Echoing the sentiments of my colleagues, I am concerned about how we function down here. This came in at 12:43 p.m. today. We have rules to when our legislation is supposed to come in. We never follow them. They should be followed. And this is wrong. I was wondering why I seen the individuals here that I saw. I thought they were here to support our legislation on conversion therapy, and they probably are. But to hear this read in, it troubles me. I was getting ready for planning, so I didn't even see it until just now. I'm concerned that this is how we are continuing to function, and this is why our residents have no faith in us. This is not right. We don't have to support it. I support it, and I'm going to say that on the record. So as this body votes, whether up or down it, I support issue 10. I support the residents, whether their signatures were valid or not. I support each and every signature that came through on this ballot because people want change. They are tired. And this is not about saying all police are bad. We're saying that there needs to be some oversight. This didn't just happen yesterday. This has been a conversation for quite some time, longer than many of us have sat around this horseshoe. I remember being one of those activists out there demanding there be change after Demetrius Vincent was killed. And we talked about it, then it went away. Then we talked about it, then it went away. This isn't going away. It doesn't matter whether we voted up or down or not, it's not going to go away. But for us as a body that is elected by the citizens who signed this petition to say that their signatures don't matter, their concerns don't matter, is what this is saying. It's saying that we don't care about what they want to see. And it's a concern. And we have to lead by example. Bringing this in at 12:43 is not right. It's not right. It's not how we should be governing for the city. This is a concern, and we all should be concerned. We all should be concerned. Things like this, May is going to be a new day for this city. I'm telling you, people are going to get rid of us because of stuff like this. It's not right. And I do my job. I'll say that on the record. This right here, I will not support it. It's disrespectful, not only to the citizens, it's disrespectful to the Walker family.
Further questions or comments? Oh, Mr. Kamer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate this. Yeah, I'm a little disturbed by the last minute resolution coming in at the last minute. I know I did get a phone call today, and if public safety was meeting today and this came in under public safety, I would have been really upset. And I've been sitting down there in one of those chairs, and I would really voice my concerns because that's not how I roll my public safety committee. Don't bring legislation in or resolutions in at the last minute. I'm a little disturbed on the direction council is going. I do support the mayor's plan. I really do like the mayor's plan. You get 11 board members, 1 from each ward, and I support that plan, and I'm glad it came to council. But I don't think we need to be discussing this resolution. We have so many other things going on in the city. I mean, I don't know what you folks are doing, but as a ward council person, I'm spending 4 or 5 hours on the phone every day. And I mean, I'm talking about some serious issues, and yeah, so moving forward, I'm not going to support this resolution. I know how I'm going to vote when I go to the ballot box. And like I said, I'll say it again, I do support the mayor's plan. I voted for it. But the resolution coming in at the last minute, I don't know where the FOP stands. I'm looking at the resolution, it does say litigation. I'd like to get a lawyer's opinion on that. So moving forward, those are my concerns, my reservations, and I'll be voting against this if it comes up for a vote. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? Holland? Nancy Holland?
Thank you, Acting Chair Fusco, and thank you to all who commented before me. I am particularly struck by Councilman Kamer's comments, and I would add that last month, in the month of September, this council carried out its duty with regard to the ballot initiative, which was to carry out the responsibility of certifying that ballot item to the Board of Elections. And that was our duty, full stop. I would add that I too will take a stand against this resolution purely from the standpoint that procedurally and philosophically, our responsibility was already carried out in September. Now, as to what happens next, we can all get on match with 8 Ball. As to those who've indicated they'd like to know more about the legal future of all this, I do happen to know an experienced labor and employment lawyer. However, she was not consulted. I think that bears on some of the comments that have been made about perhaps a little bit of a breakdown in communication and collaboration, not just within City Council, but within our community. I don't think it's a real argument to say that folks disagree on the notion of citizen involvement and oversight. Again, we are a modern city, and we work hard, I think, in many directions to continue that modernization effort and trend. And part of being a modern city is to use citizen oversight in what is at the very core of what's happening in Akron and what will happen going forward in every meaning of that expression. So, seems to me that we continue to have a lot of work to do in our communications with each other, not just around the horseshoe, but in the community. I thank you for giving me an opportunity to say this, and
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Thank you. Not today. Thank you. This evening, you're welcome to stop back after the committee meeting and make comment after the council meeting. At this point, seeing none, of course, I have a couple things to say. Maybe I didn't make it clear, and I apologize to all my colleagues who are offended. Mr. Malik, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say, I know we have at least 2 people in the audience who came on a very short notice to weigh in on this, and I would, just humbly request that they be permitted a few minutes to briefly, they took the time to participate. Very few people come to our committee meetings, but these 2 people did on very short notice, so I just humbly ask that.
Thank you. They did submit, but there was nothing in terms of what subject matter. We've had 3 subject matters before us today. We've had 3 pieces of legislation that was discussed, didn't know which one it was for. Again, we have an opportunity for the public to comment to council at 7 o'clock after our meetings, and they can Zoom in or be here in person. Thank you for bringing that up. Ms. Amobian.
Mr. Chair, we talk so much about public input, particularly at our committee meetings, because when people call and all of that, we say, well, you can tune into the committee meeting, and that's where all the discussion occurs, and you're going to tell me that you're going to deny citizens the opportunity to give input? I mean, this should be a collaborative process, and when people come down here, we should allow them to speak. Usually when we let them speak at council meetings, keep in mind of the process at council meetings, we have already taken action and voted on issues before they speak. This is to gain their input into this conversation. And that's what this is all about, making sure we dial in other information. And I think it's really, really disingenuous of us not to allow people to come and speak at committee meetings, which is where the work occurs.
Hey, Linda Mobian, thank you again for your personal attacks. 1 second, we do have the chairman here. Let me talk to the chairman real fast. 1 second, please. However, though, I would ask, I asked this committee and council, I said at the very beginning of this, I said, take time, and I've been attacked. I've been attacked by a few of you. And the thing of it is I said, let's take time. I'm not asking for a vote today. I thought I said that. And it did come in late, and I think I mentioned because it came in late. I'm not asking for a vote today, okay? So, in that same vein, 2 minutes before the meeting is to start, I was told that there's some folks that like to speak to us. And I didn't even know what the subject matter was going to be. So, with that, 1 second, please. I'd like to talk to the actual chairman of the committee. I'm just the vice chairman, I'm not the chair. 1 second, please.
Mr. Chair, may I speak, please?
No, 1 second, please. We're trying to sort this out, okay, Mr. Mobian? Please, everyone, just give us, please give us a second. This is very rare for us to have people come in 2 minutes before a meeting. Just please, please.
Okay, fine, thank you.
We do have within our rules that the chairperson's supposed to be contacted before a meeting in terms of speaking before a committee. It's got to be registered, and it's got to be like what that particular issue is going to be. I will do this, though. It won't be on the record. You can be on the record tonight, and you can talk about issue 10 all you want and about this piece. And you can say whatever you like this evening, but our procedures are we have to know at least beforehand and at least what the issues are going to be. Again, I'll meet with you afterwards, and you can tell me your thoughts. More than happy to do that, and any committee members are happy to do that. But at this time, I don't believe it's, we're going to let this happen in terms of the public comment during this committee meeting. So with that,
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms.
May I
Movian.
speak?
Yeah, by all means.
Okay. Again, I want to say this. I hope you can hear. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I want to say this publicly, and I want you to hopefully to take it as I'm saying it. There was no personal attack on you, and I hope you take that seriously.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not attacking you or anyone in the chamber. I am voicing an opinion against what was done.
That's okay.
And let me say this. As an organization representing the people, we should always put the people above any rules that we have. And the rules are subject to change at any time. I mean, like for instance, when the young lady spoke about the conversion therapy, we have a rule that says you shouldn't speak more than 3 minutes or 5 or something like that. She went beyond that, which was fine with me because she educated me more than I would have ever been. So we need to make sure that we're always changing our rules as we see fit. When people take the time to come to us to provide input, whether we like it or not, we should grant them the time to do this. Not only that, as a council, I didn't know this was on the agenda today. So I couldn't even react to it before the meeting. So you can't even think that the public would have known it. So I hope you are reconsidering your position. But again, it was not a personal attack. It's an attack against whatever method is being used. And that's what I'm against. I'm against us bringing in the legislation at the last minute. And I think the legislation is disingenuous because it speaks against the people.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again. I'd like to just say that I'm asking for time, okay? Asking for no vote today. So we'll have all week to look at it, okay? That's 1 second, please, and please forgive me, the attorney's vote. All right, Holland? Nancy Holland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair. I would join the comments about this not being a personal or political position at all, but rather procedural. And specifically, I'd like to join the comments about allowing those guests who are in the gallery today to speak. I've received a communication from a Ward 1 resident who advises that the known steps were followed to get on the list prior to the start of this committee meeting to speak. And understanding as I do that all organizations need to operate with order and rules for operating in a smooth manner, I would just support and also renew the request that those who came down to speak be permitted an opportunity to do so. Thank you.
So are we, I just, you know, for consideration for everyone, I think what we should do is really formalize these rules. I think that would be a prudent thing. 1 minute, 2 minutes before a meeting, after a meeting starts, because they're going to be subject to everyone discuss it. You know, I mean, we have rules in place for a reason, and they're, everyone, they don't like it. As a matter of fact, this council, they voted on all these rules. Ms. Mosley, please.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you what, Ms. Mosley, before you start, if I could.
I just don't want you to feel like we're attacking you. I don't do that.
I
don't
shouldn't.
do that. I don't. I just,
Okay,
that's not
right.
my makeup. I am
replay
passionate
the
in my statements, so I want to put that on the record. And as we talk about rules, we need to follow our own, because January of 2021, we revised our rules because of, you know, we do a lot of virtual meetings now, and Rule 6.9, requesting and introducing legislation, we are not following. I could read it all, but it's a lot, but I can read it. Rule 6.10, assigning new legislation, we are not following it at all. So one of the pieces in the legislation right here, it says all requests for legislation must be specific and accompanied by a sufficient documentation and/or information clearly evidencing the purpose of proposed content of the requested legislation, including any applicable uniform report forms. If legislation requests are not made with enough specifically as may be determined by the Department of Law, said request will not be drafted or considered. Further, all new legislation submitted in the manner described in this section must be received by the clerk of council by noon the Friday before. The legislation is to be introduced. Legislation is received after the time stated above will not be considered unless approved by the president.
Okay, well, what I could do possibly is withdraw it and bring it in next week. We'll talk it all over again. I mean, how about that? Because I've asked for a week, and it seemed as though we're talking about the rules a whole lot more than we are about the resolution. And like I said, I do take it personal in terms of whenever people are talking about, like, we'll see what happens in May and et cetera. But the thing of it is this, just simply this. Simply this. Next week, I will come in with a piece of legislation that will identify exactly how, we address the public in the future whenever it comes to committee meetings. It is in our law, it's in our rules already, but it seems as though the majority of those council members here and on the committee would like to hear from the folks here that would like to speak. I will allow 2 people to come up because this is outside of our rules. I will allow 2 people, they'll have 3 minutes, and please be mindful of that because this is outside of our rules, but we will allow that. And please, if you can, I believe there's 2 people that actually sign forms. Am I right? 2 folks sign forms. Now we had 2 people sign forms, right? And then yeah, we had 2. Sarah?
I have not received any forms.
No forms at all. Okay.
Unless they went in.
No forms. I don't see any forms.
Exactly.
Okay, if you 2 are the speakers for this one issue, then you 2 can speak. Is that it? Is that what you would like? I mean, well, we're going outside of our boundaries here to a very large extent. So, yeah, so we have 2 speakers, 2 individuals. If you could please provide for us your name and address, okay? Stick to the issue, please, and we'll give you 3 minutes, all right?
Thank you, Vice Councilman Chair. My name is Reverend Dr. Joyce Penfield. My address is 247 Portage Lakes Drive, Akron, Ohio.
Okay, so you're not in Akron?
I would like to address the issue of issue 10 and the ordinance that you have, according to the sheet that I've looked at.
Yes.
I'd rather back up for a minute. And by the way, I'm a retired Episcopal clergy, and I have been working hard on issue 10 out in the community, door to door. I've been in Ward 2, Ward 4, Ward 9, Ward 5, and another ward I don't know I was in.
All right.
And I've been talking to individuals, average, everyday citizens. People want to feel safe. They want to be safe. People want to be safe from being chased down. They want to be safe from bullets. They want to be safe. They have a lot of fear. We need to improve our relationship between police and community in order to go forward. We are now under the spotlight in the country. We have a chance in Akron. I'm only here 3 years, but I've gotten the taste of Akron. We have a chance to make a change and to show a way forward. And we need to keep focused on that and find a way to move forward. We need to be also very cognizant that the citizens, the everyday citizens that are trying to struggle to survive one day at a time, that their voice is included. Sometimes up here, that voice gets strayed away because this is a foreign place for some people. So we need a council who will come together to move forward to honor the voice that came out inside those 7,000 signatures, and I will say has also promised to vote for it, several hundred that I've already talked to. So I'm urging you to focus on how we could work together in better community police relations and how we can coalesce and work forward to remember that safety and making Akron even better than it is really where we want to go. And I would also like to thank all the council members, all of you, and the work that I know you do, and do carefully.
Thank you.
Reverend Nanette Pitt, 325 Mineola Avenue, Akron, 44313, Ward 4. I also serve a church, the oldest church in Akron, in Ward 1 on 292 East Market Street. This amendment, the charter amendment, was not written on a paper napkin in a coffee room somewhere or by a few people who got together and decided to foment their objections. It was written after considered reports by a group of educated people who consulted with one of Ohio's leading law firms for election, campaign finance, and political law in Columbus, Ohio. To elevate the claim, Chairman Fusco, and thank you for making the time for us to speak, but to elevate the claim that this is flawed legislation that will lead to litigation and a waste of taxpayers' dollars is using your power as a council member to elevate a claim to fact. It is not a good approach. For all the reasons that were said today, you represent the people of Akron. I've seen you as a good leader in my time here in Akron. You were one of the first to welcome me. And I ask you, I plead with you today and others who are aligned with this particular resolution to withdraw it. Thank you.
Thank you. D, are you number 2 or 3?
3. I just want to say that I was misled though, because I came to you before this.
No, you weren't.
I was,
said
because
public,
when I
no.
talked, excuse me.
No,
when I talked to Sarah, she told me to talk to you, and then Mike was not here, so you was the next in charge, and I just want to let you understand that you truly misled me. If I needed to fill out
Thank
proper
you for letting me
paperwork,
understand.
you
I will
didn't.
give you a couple minutes.
You're not
And
giving people
before you
the
yell at me,
opportunities.
come on, this is
No
okay.
one is yelling.
I'm going to
You're
give you a minute.
speaking
Just
over
talk
me.
about the issue, please. Please.
So,
We're spending all this time on the way we conduct business versus the issue itself.
all right, so let me speak then.
Do it. That's why I was going to let you do it, and you started
Are
in
you
on the
gonna cut
procedures.
me
It
off?
seems like
Can I-
that's what we're here for, is talk about procedures. Go
Are you
ahead,
done?
please. Please
Okay.
be brief, though. Please.
So,
We have
I
other
am here
committees.
in support of issue 10, and I just want to bring to your acknowledgement that this is people-driven. We got 7,000 signatures and we went door to door. So this is truly by the people. And for this to be brought to the attention the same day, that's unethical. That is truly something that city council does not normally do. So this is odd behavior. So if this is something that we all want to continue, intentionally, Jeff, because you brought this to council, we must take you out of office, because this is not for the people. And I just need everyone to understand you're serving the people, not your underlining agendas. And as representatives of the people, I don't feel represented at all. If you're saying that what we did on the ground by collecting these 7,000 signatures to put it on the ballot, that's hard work. And canvassing alone is not the easiest job. So for us to get those signatures and to go door to door across the entire city in a small time frame, it is truly something that is powerful. So please don't cut me off and let me speak everything that I want to say. I am against this ordinance, and I just truly want to push forward issue 10.
Thank you. Very good. With that, we'll close the public hearing portion, if you will. There's a lot to say, I guess. Like I said, I do somewhat take some of the comments personal from folks whenever they make some of their comments, but we're going to let that go for now. A couple things. I think it's important, like I said, we are a professional organization. I like to think of us as a professional organization here. We have rules that we have to follow. Again, I'll re-look at those rules, and we can look at those. I do want to emphasize to those that are leaving that spoke that we have rules, and it's typically before a committee meeting starts and we know exactly, it's got to be reference the exact item that's on the agenda, okay? And in terms of some of the comments that were made, I do I do take them somewhat personal, because in our democracy, I thought here in this space, in Akron City Council, and on the streets of Akron, we can debate issues. We will not agree on issues, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for us not to agree on issues so we can move our city forward, okay? I do believe everything that's within this. I asked for time at the very beginning of it. If I knew everyone was going to be all offended, then I could have waited, wait till next week. But I knew it was pushing the envelope, and I apologize to my colleagues for bringing this in the last minute. But I don't apologize for the resolution. I'm not going to do that because I'm against issue 10, and I'm not afraid to stand up and say I'm against issue 10. However, I'm for oversight. I'm for an auditor that we will have, that will be more empowered. I'm for a budget that will help us get to where we want to be in terms of police oversight. I'm for everything that we're all for. However, I am not for standing up for something that I don't believe is right, and I've never operated that way. I just haven't, and I don't believe that issue 10 is right for Akron. I believe the mayor and city council ordinance is right for Akron. I believe that if this is passed, and if we have changes, it's so murky and it's so gray. It's not black and white, and that after council, what can council change within what's proposed in front of us? We're told that we can make, we can mold it and frame it ourselves. There's a lot going on here within issue 10. We can't really mold a whole lot of it, okay? And also, an ordinance cannot change a substantive part of the charter amendment. So, again, like I said, I'm more than happy to stand up and say, this is going to put Akron in harm's way, our budget in harm's way, whenever it comes to our budget. We know we've had court litigation that's lasted for years and years and years and cost taxpayers hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars could have went to better policing. It could have went to improve our roads, our parks, you name it. But it didn't. It went to litigation because it was ill-advised. I don't want to discount those efforts that were taken and the 7,000 signatures, okay? Although, for the record, again, all 7,000 folks will not be able to vote for this. 3,300 will be able to vote for issue 10, and that's okay. But I will like to remind my colleagues on council here, there's a lot more than 3,300 people in the city of Akron, and I think they need to know where we stand. I think that's fair. And we were compelled by the charter to put issue 10 on the ballot. We were compelled to do that. We have to do that. Okay, we did that. Okay? So with that, I see a couple more hands raised. Mr. Malik.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a motion for time on the resolution.
Okay, thank you. I think out of courtesy, I should let Ms. Amobian speak before we take that vote.
And thank you, Mr. Chair, for that. I want to remind you that this is truly not personal. This is about making our community safer. There are a number of things that were stated. I want to make sure that we correct the record. We probably could have gotten 10, 20,000 signatures. But the Board of Elections was only going to accept so many, and we know that. All I'm saying is that let the people speak after doing all this work. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion to refer this item. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Thank you all. The ayes have it. We're adjourned.
This is the final committee meeting this afternoon. Council will meet at 7 p.m. tonight.